Today I am going to show you how to put together the chicken pies. I'll show you one and then you're on your own after that. But the chicken just got done. It was in the crock pot for 4 hours on high. And all I did was took a slotted spoon and fished the chicken out. You can tell the pepper settled on one of them. It's not going to hurt anything. And all I'm going to do is shred the chicken. Each chicken pie takes about 3 chicken breasts or so of meat. At least that's the way we like it, meat to sauce ratio. And depending, sometimes for whatever reason, it's like there's a little more sauce than another time, or it's a little thinner. I've tried to get it down to a science so that it's not inconsistent, because I would rather it be consistent. But nevertheless, I'll show you how I do it, my normal way of doing it. And the chicken does smell really good. It smells really flavorful. Sometimes when I cook chicken breast before, I'm sort of like, okay, I guess that's a piece of meat. It smells like protein, but that's about all we got. But doing it the way I've been doing it in the crock pot with additional herb, with the bay leaf, and the salt and pepper, and the better than bouillon, and I use the roasted chicken better than bouillon. I like the flavor of that. They have all kinds of different ones though. I use the roasted chicken one the most, but I know they have other ones, so you do you, however you like it. But all I'm gonna do is just roughly and quickly shred this up with my forks. And I left the other ones in the crock pot still cooking for a little bit longer because these are tender. They're not quite as fallen apart as I wanted, and usually if I'd gotten my stuff together to put it in the morning and then gone about my day, I could have cooked it on low for a longer period of time and it probably would have been even more tender. But these will do. These will do just fine. I've gotten out the other things that I'm going to need. It's a very simple recipe. It doesn't need a whole lot because sometimes you just don't need a whole lot. Shredded chicken like this with some good sauce in there and the pastry on the top, it's just comfort food. You don't need a lot more than that to it. I do like chicken pot pie with all the vegetables in it, but there's a soft spot in my heart for just plain old chicken pie. Of course, there was nothing plain about how Miss Patsy did it. She did it better than anybody. Okay, I've got this chicken shredded, and what I'm gonna do now is I get the 8x8 aluminum pans, like I said, just because they're easy and they fit in the freezer easily. They will fit in a gallon-sized Ziploc freezer storage bag when you get it frozen, and they stack in the freezer easily. I'm going to take a little bit of Pam and spray the bottom of it lightly, nothing crazy. And all I'm going to do is dump the chicken into the bottom of the pan. And I will usually take my forks and spread the chicken around to make sure that it's covering the bottom of the pan. That way nobody has to fight about the corner piece or the middle piece or anything, because there's the same amount of chicken throughout. And you can see this is a chicken heavy dish, right? Of course, I think these pans get shorter as time goes on. I used to buy these things to do cakes in and to do chicken pies in, and it felt like there was a little more room at the top after you got it filled up, but now there isn't. So I think they're getting shorter. Okay, so it looks like it's pretty well covered, and I'm actually just going to put my forks to the side so that when I get my sauce mixed up, I can sort of do the fork down into the chicken and make sure the sauce covers in the holes. Now, if you've watched me do any of these, you know I'm very fond of mixing things in my measuring cup. The spout makes it easy to pour out the sauce into whatever you're doing. And it's usually pretty forgiving and a good size to put your whisk in. Cream of chicken soup, I usually get the healthy request. Where I can, I try to cut the sodium content a little. because you also are going to put some sodium in it in the form of some good kosher salt after I get this in here with the chicken broth. But I'm just going to add this to it. I know I should probably be figuring out how to make my own cream of whatever I'm using, because this stuff is it is processed, but sometimes you take the easy way and call it a day. Now I've got more of this bone broth, so I'm going to just fill up the cream of chicken can with the chicken broth, and I have just gotten it straight out of the crock pot where I've cooked the chicken before. You can do that as well. I also like getting it just straight out of the container. All right. Now, the only other thing you add to this is salt and pepper. That's it. So I'm going to add about half a teaspoon. And look, if you've not been able to get the low sodium broth, if you've had to use better than bouillon to make the broth, which has more sodium in it, anything that has added more sodium to it, you might not want to add half a teaspoonful of salt. You're going to have to determine what is to your taste. I'm pretty sensitive to salt. I think that this dish, if you're not careful, can get pretty salty. So I, generally speaking, don't even go the whole half teaspoon. It's a little more than a quarter, but it's not quite a half, just because I know what I like. And then quarter teaspoon of pepper. Of course, we know I add a little bit more than that on this because I like my pepper. So I'll add a heaping quarter teaspoon to that. And very easily just whisk it around in here. All you're doing is getting the two incorporated. I use my 4-cup Pyrex measuring cup just because I like that it's heavy enough that it doesn't move around on the counter while you're trying to mix it. And it's big enough to give you plenty of room to get it all mixed in together. But McKenna's going to pick out which little cookie cutter I use.
I can get it open.
She can get the thing open. Which little cookie cutter I use on my dough for the top of this pie, which is about as fancy as I get. Okay, now all I'm going to do is take this. Honey, don't sweat it. I'll open it. And I'm going to pour it down into the chicken evenly over. And it should cover the chicken really well. You don't want dry chicken in there. A pocket of air with just a dry baked chicken down in there. Don't want that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fork and just move the chicken around a little bit so that you can make sure that it's getting covered in the sauce and that you got sauce in all the corners, all the nooks and crannies. All right. You still haven't gotten that open?
It's hard. I'm trying not to make them explode.
Okay. Sounds like she finally got it open.
Be quiet.
Okay. That looks good. Looks like everything's all mixed in there together. And I have spilled just a little bit of chicken broth on the counter, so I'm going to just wipe that up. Okay. Before I turned on the camera, I wiped down this area of the counter really well. And what can I do? Oh, Jamie, can I make it gluten-free? Well, yes, you probably just have to make your own. You can either make the soft crust with gluten-free flour substitute and some butter and milk. I'll have to give you that part of the recipe. Or if you have gluten-free pie crust, you can use that. But I don't know, does cream of chicken have gluten in it? I'm sorry, I gotta get up on my gluten-free stuff. McKenna wants me to use a pumpkin.
Apple.
An apple. Okay, McKenna wants me to use an apple because it's feeling like fall out there. All right.
This is a pumpkin.
Well, I guess it is. All right, I'm gonna just put this to the side. And I'm going to get out my handy dandy Never Fail.
We're not going to put that on all the way.
Never Fail Pillsbury pie crust. I mean, way not fancy. I have done my own pie crust before, but good grief, y'all. I can't do it faster and easier than this. So this is what I'm going to do. I've had them sitting out on the counter so that they're not frozen, yes, because they were in the refrigerator, and they do have to come to room temperature a little bit so that you're going to be able to work with it without it breaking. So, okay, so all I'm going to do is, and it may not have gotten quite up to temperature yet because it's feeling cold enough that it's going to crack. I hope it doesn't. But, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll it a little bit, which is going to warm it up some, create a little bit of friction, hopefully make it so that it will hang together more when I put it on top of this thing. So you might have noticed this is square and this is round. So I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so that it can, and this is a handy dandy little tiny rolling pin, which is nice. I didn't have to get out my big rolling pin.
I hate that thing.
But all I'm going to do is make it a little bit bigger. Apparently I'm also going to suck it up into my roller here. All right. Now, I'm just going to lay it on the top of this. Nothing fancy here. And I'm going to just push it down with my thumbs around the edge. And y'all, the shapes that I'm going to do for the top, that's as fancy as I get. If you want the pinched pie crust all around the edge, and you're going to have to look elsewhere. McKenna, will you pass me a butter knife, please? Now that I've gotten it all over, and you see that it's falling over the edge.
You want a serrated butter knife?
No, I'm just going to take a butter knife, nothing fancy, and I'm going to cut on the sides. Just run the knife gently, swiping down all around the edge so that I can take this curtain, this apron that's hanging over the side,
and use it for the shapes.
I'm going to use it for the shapes. So, and this, as my children will tell you, is the most important part of this chicken pie.
It's just like a little shape of pie crust.
Anyway, what I'm going to do now is just take what I got left and roll it out on the counter. And McKenna has picked out the apple. I like stars or hearts, but whatever, we'll do the apple. I guess she thinks it's feeling like fall out there too.
Looks like fall.
Look, in your kitchen store, you'll find, in a lot of kitchen stores, and this one I happened to get from Pampered Chef because I went to a party somebody had, but this is just a little tiny kit of tiny cookie cutters, and they did it specifically for a seasonal thing. So there's like a heart and a star and a pumpkin and an apple.
And a pepper.
A pepper, a leaf, 4-leaf clover, and a little flower. So there's all kinds of things in here to choose from. So sometimes I do it seasonally. It's no skin off my nose. I was going to do it anyway.
If we do it in fall, we usually use a pumpkin.
Yes, we'll use a pumpkin in the fall. All right. So all I'm going to do is cut out some apples, and depending on how many you want to put on top, I guess that's however many you cut out. So I'm just cutting until I run out of dough. I have done 9 on a square, an 8x8 square, or if I'm feeling really adventurous and I'm not, the apple's a little bit bigger shape. But all you do is lay it down on the top of your pie. That's it. You just lay it across and figure out how many you want across. And let me see if 4 will fit. I don't know if 4 will fit. I might have to do 3 across.
Oh, eat one.
Just beware, your kid's spouse or you may fight over which piece has what shape on it. When my kids were little, they loved to eat the stars on top. They would save, some of them would save the stars till last.
I still do it.
McKenna still saves whatever shape till last. I think the boys eat it with it as they go, but
And if you want it really good, you dip it in the sauce.
yeah, if you want it to be really good, you dip it in the sauce. McKenna's telling you all the secrets. All right.
Good.
So I'm just gonna lay these on the top, and I ended up with 12 on top this time. They're
And you still have dough left.
I still have dough left. So what you can do too,
It's just cut out shapes.
you can just cut out shapes of the dough and just put them on a baking sheet and put them in when you put in the chicken pie, or put them in afterwards, however you want to do it. And you can shake cinnamon and sugar over them. You can brush and do an egg wash over them, or brush a little bit of butter over them, and they puff up into these little shapes that you can just eat by themselves. Anyway, so that is the chicken pie, and it will cook at 350 degrees for 30 minutes in the oven. I recommend putting it on a baking pan just in case something bubbles over. We've established that these little pans are not very tall, and we filled it pretty full. And then if you want to freeze it, you can I usually take a piece of Glad press and seal, and I'll put it over and tightly press it along all sides, and then I'll take a sheet of aluminum foil and press it all along each side. Then I'll stick it in a Ziploc gallon storage bag for the freezer, and put it in single file in my freezer to set up hard. And once they're hard, you can stack them on top of each other. And then you can take them out, and you can defrost them in the refrigerator if you want to during the day before you bake them. But mostly, this is what I mostly do, I just take it out frozen and I put it in the oven 350 degrees, and I just add a little time to it. I think I add 10 to 12 minutes. It actually doesn't take that much longer, depending on the size. This might take a little longer. The little ones take less time. I think the little ones you can do from frozen in like 15 minutes. So they're a good solution. But that's it. It's literally just that. Nothing fancy, but somehow it tastes really good. If you have any questions, ask. Happy to answer them. And I will post a picture and the recipe when we get done with it. And I actually didn't even get vegetables to have with it, since this is just chicken. I think I'm just gonna make a salad tonight, so I'm going the lazy route. But family favorite, great for a day that's windy and rainy. Hope you guys are enjoying it, even if it is windy and rainy today. Have a good evening.